Hi, I'm Jim at JStan Studio, and thank you for joining me for this. So this is going to be as a time-lapse demonstration of how I went about painting this guy right here. Sort of a winter halo scene. So it's a really great painting, something that I painted live at one of my first live shows, and I really enjoyed painting it. It really came out well, I felt like. So let's jump on in to this demonstration of how I painted it. All right, so in this one, what you're going to see is I start off with a black canvas, something that's kind of interesting. I always enjoy starting from black instead of white sometimes, just to kind of get a feel for different pieces. The colors interact a little bit differently, and I really like the way that black canvases come across. So what you see me start off with is the sky, which is normally what I start off with. And in the sky, I'm using a lot of purples, and I kind of move towards oranges and yellows as you get closer to the horizon line. And the reason that I'm doing that is because I want something that kind of is reminiscent of either a very late, like sunset or early moonrise or something like that. I want it to kind of look like a nighttime scene where there's still a little bit of light, but it's really just barely there, sort of fading away. So that's what I start off with. And as I go, I start to put in a couple of little cloud shapes and so forth. I'm working on the water there, so just kind of putting in some of those general shapes. And these blue slopes are actually eventually going to be snowbanks. So what my general process is for painting snow is I start off with a light blue, and I kind of just try to get the shape of the driving snow as it's going over the surface of the ground. I found that that tends to work a little bit better, and the colors just seem to blend a little bit better for me. So that's what works for me. As I go through, I start making out some of those outcroppings and so forth. I put in my little light source there, and I just did that with my index finger. I just kind of put my finger into some paint and kind of swirled it around and got a little circle shape. I put in some clouds beyond that. And then what I do is I add in these two little rings. And what I wanted to do is have those be like little halo sort of ice crystal things. So kind of suggesting that you're way out there in the wilderness. It's very cold, and you kind of get this sort of look of, it almost kind of looks like a rainbow, but it's just these little ice crystals that are catching the light as they kind of float through the air. And they kind of create this sort of halo effect, which I thought was kind of something that was unique and something that was different for me and interesting visually. So from here, what I do is I go in and I make my faraway tree line. So by doing that, I'm just using a fan brush, and I'm taking some darkish gray color and just putting in a couple of those tree shapes. I start with the fan brush going vertically, and then I start just dabbing it harder and harder as I get towards the base of the tree. Because as you dab it harder, you're getting more paint. The branches look like they're spreading out a little bit more, and the tree becomes a little bit fuller when you paint it that way. So that's the general process there. And then from there, what I start doing is I put in my white layer. So I'm taking advantage of the natural transparency of acrylic paint by painting white over the top of the blue. So what you get is this it's definitely white, but it has this cool feeling to it because you can see a little bit of the blue coming through it. In a little bit, I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to some of the tops of the snowbanks. Not because it's yellow snow necessarily, but because I want to give it that feeling of warmth from the light that's still in the air at night. So I go in and I fill in all of those pieces of white, and then I take my palette knife and I cut in a white line where the water meets the shoreline. And basically that's just there to kind of create a visual cue that, hey, there's a difference, a separation here. It just kind of ties things together a little bit more and makes it clear to the viewer what exactly is happening. I paint a big tree now using the same methodology. I start off dark, and then what I do is I come in and I start working on different colors inside the tree. So because these trees are closer to us, we can see a little bit of the color. So I start with a pale green kind of going in some of the branches. And again, I'm still using pretty much a fan brush there. I make a little bit of gray in the trees in the background, and then I start using pure white to make snow on the branches of the trees. And the way that I'm doing that is really just kind of following in my mind how I would see a tree that had some snow on the branches of it. You don't want to kill all of the color with white. You want to leave some of the areas of darkness, some of the areas of the pale green that was there, but mostly getting snow on the outside tips of the branches to give it that really snowy, outdoorsy sort of look. So I add in those details. I add in a couple of little minute details in the light source, and then that finishes off the painting. So the finished painting is up on the screen now, and I was really happy with the way that it came about. I like the yellow on the snow because it kind of suggests a certain level of warmth, but the blue that still peers through the white of the snow still gives it that wintry sort of look. And the trees themselves, I thought, came out looking rather wild and covered in snow, which was something that I thought was really nice. Those little halos of ice crystals, too, really made for what I think is kind of a charming little winter scene there. So I hope that this video gave you some insights into how I did this, how the project came to life, what the process was, and what the steps that I follow are, what techniques I'm using. But if there's any questions that you have, feel free to throw them in the comments. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. If there's anything that you want to know, what types of paint I used, what kind of techniques I did, how I thought about something, feel free to throw it down there. Thanks a lot. I appreciate you joining, and like I said, I really hope that this was of some benefit to you and that it kind of clued you in to my process. Thanks again. Hey, thanks for checking out this video of mine. If you enjoy what I'm doing here, could I ask that you please hit the like button or the subscribe button, or maybe share it with one of your friends? It would really mean the world to me. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.